Welcome to the Reality Check, Psychosis is Real, So is Recovery podcast.
I'm Dr. Ashley Weiss. I'm a child adolescent psychiatrist.
And I'm Serena Chaudhry. I'm a clinical social worker.
And we are the co-founders of EPIC-NOLA, which is the Early Psychosis Intervention Clinic in New Orleans, and also the co-founders of CALM, Clear Answers to Louisiana Mental Health.
Welcome to Reality Check, Psychosis is Real, So is Recovery. We're super excited today to have the Honorable Calvin Johnson with us. Can you, Your Honor, please give us an introduction? Tell us who
I am middle-aged and very happy. I refuse to use that old word. I am middle-aged. This is my middle-aged. And I'm very happy. Yes, I am. I was in court today until about an hour ago. This is a great time, though, to be involved in this kind of conversation. I am actually back in court as an ad hoc judge. And what I have seen in the last almost 40 days is just a repeat of how we were not doing these things correctly 30 years ago, and still not doing them correctly.
Tell us more.
To see the disconnect between, for instance, lawyers who represent people with the illness, their disconnect or still lack of true understanding about the illness itself, and especially how the treatment modalities can be accessed and used to those clients in those clients' best interest. But still to see that kind of disconnect in 25 that you were seeing in 99, for instance, it's just hard to understand how the legal community haven't really got at this from a teaching perspective. I'm talking about law schools now, but from a teaching perspective. But I also, the treatment perspective, still haven't, for whatever the reason, engaged proactively with the legal community. And to see that still playing out in 2025.
What do you think has to change for that to shift? Because when I did my forensic psychiatry fellowship, now that I think about it, we had a lot of coaching from the law students about testifying. And not that mental illness is only represented in the forensic world, but you do have a lot of mental illness that is represented in that world. But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know how many educational sessions that they have about serious mental illness and the specifics at all.
You're correct. And on my side of it, those who do those matters, generally lawyers who do them, are not necessarily looking at it from a holistic or a real treatment perspective. They're looking at it from their normal legal lens and how to effectuate what they believe is the best interest of the client, but not really understanding what the realities of the client actually are. And so that kind of piece. Now, that's more on public defenders who do so much of this work. But it's there.
So can you tell the listeners a little about your history in the courtroom and your connection to mental health court?
I was a public defender in the late 70s, and then I became a law professor, actually, at Loyola Law School, running the criminal clinic program. But it's there that I started to really see the connections between clients and illness, be it mental illness or be it addiction issues, but to see the connection between behaviors and those kinds of pieces. But again, not necessarily seeing it other than I got to get my client the best thing possible in terms of deal or in terms of what, but not necessarily seeing it from any kind of treatment perspective. Didn't see it from that. I really didn't, I'll be honest with you. Didn't. I became a judge in 91 and then started, of course, to see much, much more of this now because I'm looking at it every day in the courtroom. So seeing so much more of it. But again, not necessarily Well, this is a safe space, so let me be truthful. Not thinking at that stage, it's not my fault. It's not my problem. See, I'm a judge, but that's not my problem.
Right.
That's your problem. But as a judge, that's not my role even. And as my wife would say, that his words were, he's not a social worker. That's not what he does. And that's how he messaged it. And I did. That's how I messaged it. This is 91, 92. But that's how I messaged it. But then growing in terms of my own career as a judge, but growing in terms of my understanding, real understanding of behavioral issues and criminal justice, and the fact that the criminal justice system, the way it acted, the way it is designed, wasn't designed to be really impactful across those issues, because, as I just said, it wasn't our problem. And so that's how we thought about it. And that's how we went at it. And so we had to change our way of thinking.
So when you, going back to something that you said about a holistic approach, but also from the legal side, wanting like the best outcome for your client and sometimes like the best deal, but also wanting to take into account the treatment perspective. I guess like in an ideal world, how would those two merge? Because you could have similar desires for the best deal, but also for somebody to get care. And ideally, how do we bring those together? Or also, what do you see as the disconnect? I think about some of my own experience with competency restoration and trying to get people into the best situations where I was finding that they were not going to ever become competent to stand trial. But that would actually mean that they were going to be in a treatment facility indefinitely, that you'd find yourself sometimes not knowing which part was like carrying the most weight, because sometimes treatment can almost seem more confining than.
Absolutely.
And so it's hard.
And it's absolutely hard to do, especially when this three-legged stool, that treatment, lawyering, defense, and judging. Right. That's a three-legged stool. And to make it balanced is very difficult to do. The judges that just on that side of it also are miseducated as regards their role. What is my role as a judge in this? Even if we are at 25, it's still not clear to that side of this thing what the actual role is. And criminal court judges invariably get into the thought that my role is simplistic. That is I let them go, I keep them in, I say some magic words. If I let them go, and those magic words going to result in public safety in some fashion or form. But this is my role. But it does not entail being connected to the realities that's outside of my room, my courtroom, but being connected to those realities and recognizing that if I'm going to be impactful as regards this community which I'm supposedly serving, and as regards even public safety, but I have to work and know more about and be better connected to that side of it. I have to be if I'm really going to do this and do it correctly. Otherwise, the system will constantly implode, fail, constantly does. But to recognize that and to really go at that, it's hard. Lawyers go and judges go every year to their conference. At conference in Louisiana, we go to Florida the first week in June, and we judges stay there for a week, and they talk about all of the legal issues that they're confronted with, have to deal with, and so they can learn better about that. It's a rarity when this kind of piece is on that conference, regardless of what I would say, without knowing completely, but guessing, regardless of what state we're in, whether you're going to see on their CLE in their conference something about what we're talking about. It's a rarity. And we still act as if it's a rarity when in fact it's something we do regardless if it's civil or criminal. We're doing some aspect of this on a regular basis. But we don't study, we don't talk about it, we don't do that.
That's wild to me that this isn't part of the conversation at the very least. You reminded me of, I work in immigration, or I'm an expert witness in an immigration court for people looking to improve their immigration status. And I remember working with Doctors of the World or Physicians for Human Rights. At some point, they were providing training to immigration judges on the mental health issues that migrants were facing. And I was so impressed by that. And I think just assumed that was happening across court systems.
Again, my guesstimate is no, it's not. I may be wrong, but generally speaking, it's just not. On day 1 or 3 or 5 of one of those conferences, will there be an hour and a half or more of conversation around what we're talking about? That would be a rarity. That's just not. Now, it might happen every other 3 years or so. You might see something. But
right.
To have it have it in place at every one, recognizing health issues is something the legal community is faced with and must deal with on a regular basis. Because this is the reality
court, every day.
Yes, no matter what kind of court you're at to practicing in, no matter where. A number, for instance, when I was doing nationalized mental illness, and I did a stint there. But in terms of trying to get pieces, parts, or systems engaged in mental health first aid, right? Mental health first aid. It's just a little piece, a little band-aidy kind of thing. I mean, it's not that big deal at all, but it has value.
Right.
Mental health first aid has, okay, judges, legal community, let's come, and this is at NAMI, but we put on this piece on mental health first aid. It's an 8-hour thing. It's dependent upon how it's done. It could be 2 or 3 days of it. But to have a person trained in your system, trained in mental health first aid, a person. Now, it was and is so difficult to get those systems to recognize that. If you operate in reality, anything where you have crowds and crowds of people coming, you ought to have a defibrillator.
Right.
You ought to have someone trained in de-escalation. Have someone trained in de-escalation. But that's, oh my God, I don't know. Oh no, I don't know indeed.
We got a fire extinguisher in there, I'm sure.
You have a fire extinguisher. You have a defibrillator.
Yeah.
You don't have anybody trained in mental health first aid. But I was doing a City Hall stint, and I was the Criminal Justice Commissioner at City Hall. Okay, again, we're going to get someone trained in this building on mental health first aid. Couldn't get it done.
Is it because people didn't want, no one would volunteer to do it, or just no administration?
No one would volunteer, and no piece of part would mandate it.
Yeah, that's wild that it's not mandated. We have to do it annually at the state hospital.
Yes, but what about the state court?
Yeah, I can't. It seems like.
That's my point.
Right. Like a no-brainer.
I can't help but wonder to what extent stigma plays a role here.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it affects all of us. It's an infection that all of us have.
It is an infection.
That's a great way to state it.
That's a great way to think about it. And I think one of the challenges that I'll hear is when we say behavioral health, it implies choice of health because there's the assumption that like I'm choosing to behave a certain way. And I've worked with people that have major behavior problems that are not linked to underlying psychiatric illness. And then you have people that display behaviors that are occurring due to underlying psychiatric illness that is impacting the way they see the world, which are two very different things. And completely different things. And so I'm even like not into saying behavioral health just for that reason. Serena and I work mostly with psychotic disorders, which, we have to even think about the everyday behaviors of our own patients. And if those behaviors are coming from they're doing what they love, what makes them happy, and they're making some not so great decisions, maybe because they're being a little rebellious, and what like behaviors are coming just from like life and personality versus what behaviors are coming if somebody's having more symptoms. And the court definitely, I guess you get asked that question in NGRI cases. Like, I feel like that was the only time where it was like, so was this decision a decision based in a mental illness, or was it a decision based in I'm just choosing wrong? That was like the Insanity Commission work was the one place where it was really like drilled down of like what triggered this action. But otherwise, even in the mental health or even in our assisted outpatient treatment with our patients that are in AOT, those conversations aren't really happening either. And their mental illness is the primary reason that they're actually in an AOT program.
When I so agree with you, when I was doing a Metropolitan Human Service District, what is that entity, okay? And that was 2008 to 2014. But at the end of that conversation started to become about behavioral health, and almost to the point where we now get to 25, and it's as if mental illness. We don't want to say mental illness.
No.
We want to say behavioral health. We don't want to say mental illness. I don't understand why it is that we don't want to do or say mental illness. This is an illness. And at court, whenever I am now there or in some other environment when I'm talking about this, I talk about it from an illness perspective. I don't talk about it from a behavior perspective. This is an illness, and this is an illness that we have to treat and deal with like we deal with illnesses that we have. And I don't really use behavior. I use it in the sense of a descriptive piece of what we're talking about. I don't.
There's an assumption, and I think that this is probably due to stigma and due to the fact that historically healthcare communities have made some bad decisions when it comes to how they treat and manage people with psychiatric illnesses. But now when you say illness, there's an assumption that there's only a medical model being applied. And that's just not, I get like there are definitely places out in the world that will treat what we're talking about maybe from a very one-sided way. But most people that we're in contact with in the mental health community down here are not approaching mental illness like with just medication, and they're not just seeing it from a medical model. But when we completely ignore that side, then it just goes sideways.
Yeah.
Can
One of
can
the
you?
things,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. Okay, I want to say something before I forget it. And I think as a physician, not even within psychiatry, but just as a physician in general, because I consider myself a physician before a psychiatrist, like the assumption that all I'm doing is like cranking out medications is so just not consistent with reality. Like people go to the doctor plenty of times and don't get medication and might talk about their health or talk about relationships or talk about exposures that they get at work. There's so many things that there's so many ways that you're in touch with patients beyond just like writing a prescription.
Absolutely.
Right. It's short-sighted and it is not holistic. And it gets to the point that I was going to make, or the question I was going to pose is, can you see a world in which the legal system and the healthcare system work more closely and more intimately? And if so, what does that look like?
I think it starts with, again, on those places where we educate people, be it the law, be it college, be it the hospital, be it those places where we educated them And as we do in stages towards the end of that educational process, but at all stages of it, this is a part of it. Regardless if you're there for, if you're really there for one aspect, for instance, of medicine, but recognizing even there that you have to also be trained in and educated about this illness, because regardless of who you treat, they may have as a part of them this illness. They may be there for a toothache, but as a part of it is this illness. It doesn't matter. But then the same thing goes into the legal profession. Doing just accident cases. And all you're doing, that's your practice, is accident cases. It doesn't matter, because those people you're going to walk in your place, they will come with their accident and they will come with this illness. And so to recognize that across structures, and those again on that part of the stool, the legal system and all aspects of it. Think about it. All aspects of the system, not just the judge, but all aspects of it should have some kind of familiarity with this as a part of the day-to-day stuff that they do. Because this it has to be, must be, and will be a part of the day-to-day stuff that they do. So if we start to go at it from that perspective, then over time, we will get to where we need to be. But we have to commit from that perspective over time.
Yeah, you say you have to convince them. I think that just speaks to still the sort of lack of really believing that it is imperative to my job. And so even though I teach things to you in a classroom, you're going to be accountable throughout your career in whatever field to be responsible for that knowledge and to apply that knowledge when appropriate. And this is challenging with people coming from different backgrounds and experience that might still hold a lot of uncertainty or mistrust or misunderstanding of certain mental illnesses or preconceived notions about certain mental illnesses that are hard to shake. It seems like within medicine, coming into having experiences with someone that had cancer or someone that had a heart attack brings up this like passion about it. And in the mental health community, having that experience brings up a lot of mixed feelings about that topic or about that illness in particular, and just stigma.
Yeah. Again, it's hard for us. And I can sit here in this chair and I can say all of the wonderful stuff that I say and am saying. But the fact of the matter is that I'm no way close to perfect. And I too sometimes conflicted or sometimes incapable of taking that third breath and recognizing that, Calvin, you're dealing with a person with an illness. You're dealing with a system that also is ill. And so Calvin, you have to take some deep breaths. Yes,
we all need to be wearing masks. Like it's like the infection that breeds the infection.
Yeah, it is. It just is. But we are, with all of this, better off right now. We are better right now, keep in mind, than we were 40 years ago. We're better off right now. That's also true. It's also true. And sometimes we have to take enough breaths, but also recognize that we are. And we are doing some things better than we did decades ago. We are. And we're at least having conversations now about how to do even more or do it even better. And so we are there. And that should always be a part of when we talk about issues, especially this kind of issue, is to not just stay stuck in the weeds of it, but also recognize where we are in terms of positive pieces that's involved with it.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm clinging to the bottom of the weed at the bottom of the murder.
Yeah. I had a case in court that this occurs where this is how screwed up the justice system is, where I'm dealing with a case and a person who has been involved since 1983. Is still in this particular court, still on this particular court's docket, still dealing with it from 1983. Okay.
We're missing something, clearly.
But of course, that ended the day it came to me. This is over. This is not where this belongs.
What did you do?
This belongs in the civil structure, in the civil system. This belongs over there. It doesn't belong over here, y'all.
Yes.
Come on. But that's true story.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's how bad we can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have patients and have had patients at the state hospital who were on the forensic side, the criminal side for forever. And then finally after that happens, situations like you just described, they're just this is not we're just going to do it. This is a civil thing. The person's not unable to take care of themselves. They just need to be in a comfortable, safe place where they can do life and not keep having to go back to court.
Right.
Yes. And again, this is where the justice system gets confused about itself. So in terms of you can't, and you're not supposed to be a treatment entity for people with illnesses. That's not your role.
No.
That's supposed to be over there. That's not your
But
role.
it is their role now, unfortunately. And that's the problem.
Yeah. But yes, like AOT, for instance. AOT is a wonderful thing. But you have to recognize the justice systems need you at least somewhat as regards how you deal with how you get people in AOT, how you structure that to work correctly with whatever you're doing in justice. But how you do it, this is where, again, I go back to education.
Yeah.
And being educated around legalities of, again, criminal court, but what you have to deal with, being educated.
So the main themes are continuing to educate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to.
That is low-hanging fruit, so to speak. It's an easy in, it's preventative. If we can do that and see the ripple effect through different systems, it's really not that hard.
It's not that hard. And when you have something, what y'all are doing, and with first break, for instance, you now know first break works. Tell me it does. I know it does. First break kind of treatment modality works. Okay. So how then can we go to those places where you first see that happen? How then in those places do they recognize that this person needs to get to care now?
Yeah.
That person needs to get to care now. But how do we get that to happen? It's
more education.
There you go. You have to get, but of course, it always goes back to stigma. How we think about it, how we feel about it. It constantly goes back to that. It constantly does.
Yeah. Going back to what you said, you mentioned something, having to hold on to hope. Something that makes me hopeful is that you're back in the courtroom. You're an advocate, you're passionate, and you're able to see things that maybe you don't want to be there, but I am happy for New Orleans that you are there.
I'm 100 years old. And if I'm all we got, then we like the NFL, not Cologne.
That was an eye roll, though, from a healthy 32-year-old.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time, for navigating technology, talking.
Yeah, so we've gotten far. 3 of us made it with headphones and microphones and can see each other. And
I am, but I'm so happy for y'all. I really am. And for what y'all do. I really am happy about that. And of course, I talk about this piece over and over, but this piece and the fact that we have to be better at generating funds sufficient to make it more part of the treatment piece, to make it more part of that. You got to get money for that. Yeah.
Having healthcare, having the public health education part be a part of healthcare is so important. And hopefully that'll catch up to mental health care. I think it's caught up a little bit with maybe cardiovascular disease, maybe with some cancer education, where there's a lot more knowledge floating around about preventative measures and, you know, how to care for yourself early and early identification, early detection. We need that same enthusiasm with psychosis early detection.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. So whoever's listening that needs to drop funds our way. We would love to do the work.
Oh, yes.
EPIC-NOLA.org. Give you a really good sweatshirt.
It's calm.
And great care. Yes.
There you go.
All right. Thank you so much. So good.
Thank you. I really appreciated it.
November 7th, in my mind, 2025, our Psychosis Awareness Gala. So put it on your calendar.
All right.
Yeah.
So maybe I could get you guys to come on my radio show.
Oh, yes.
We're going to talk about November 7th.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. Yes.
Send us a link.
I will.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care, y'all.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Until next time, thanks for taking the time to get your reality check. And remember, psychosis is real, so is recovery.
If you have enjoyed this episode or found it useful, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from and check out the website calmnola.org.